Hello and welcome to Coffee Talk.
Hello and welcome to Rhythm Counter episode 55, the RPG Fan Music Podcast. This is our podcast where we talk about RPG music and sometimes graphic adventure music and visual novels and whatever else we're covering at the time. If you're new to the show, we're happy to have you here. If you've been listening since our first episode in 2013, well, then we're even more happy to have you here. The show is on hiatus for quite a while. So if you haven't listened, we encourage you to go back and check out the backlog. But we're back now with mostly the same format we used to use, which is basically we have a rotating cast of hosts on each episode to bring on songs for various topics, whether that's forest themes or town themes, or maybe we're talking about a specific composer. Along with that, you can always check out a full track list of every episode on rpgfan.com. And so far it's been good. The response has been good, and we're really glad to be back here. What I did not do yet, at some point, I'm going to get back in the swing of things and remember to introduce myself towards the beginning. But oh well, here we go. So I'm Mike Salbato. I'm editor-in-chief of RPG Fan and a few other roles. I actually really need to buy a hat stand for all the hats I wear. But mainly, I'm editor-in-chief. And then with me today, we also have Hilary Andreff.
Hello. And
Peter Triezenberg.
Hi, I'm one of those people who's been listening since 2013.
Oh, well, I'm glad.
Yep, it's exciting to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. So far, everyone's been really happy to come on the show, so that means a lot. So, if you're listening now, you probably already know this from the title. I don't know what the title is going to be as we're recording, but this is going to be part 2 of our relaxing music series on Rhythm Encounter. So if you haven't listened to the last one, I would encourage you to. This isn't actually a sequel. You don't need to listen to 54 to understand the context of this one. But Jono and Alana and I talked about some really great relaxing music that I would encourage you to listen to. But we have even more today. So we're going to have 6 tracks. Each of us brought 2 tracks along, and shall we get into it?
Yeah, we just all really want to discuss relaxing music, I guess.
Yep, we sure do.
We're just here to vibe.
Exactly.
Yes. I've got a big mug of coffee, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Well, good. Maybe that'll come into play in, the 5th track.
Ooh, foreshadowing.
Yes. All right, so our first 2 songs are myself and Hilary. So the first track today is going to be Slumber and Stillness from the Moonhunter soundtrack. I don't know how well known it is, but it's something I picked up on several years ago, and I'm glad I stumbled across it because this is one of my favorite tracks on the soundtrack. And then after that, Hilary, you have a song for us.
I do. My choice was Gardens and Ruins from the Mythic Ocean soundtrack. So we'll be delving into kind of a more visual novel sort of game. And it's a very pretty little exploration theme.
Great. Sounds good. All right. So we're going to go listen to Slumber and Stillness and Gardens and Ruins, and we'll have our commentary after. It's interesting that we set this up to be the first track in this episode before I knew that we were going to close out episode 54 with a piano theme. So it was kind of a fun little happenstance that 54 and 55 will flow together pretty well if you happen to listen to these back to back. Nothing to do with the song itself, but I thought it was a fun thing. So Moonhunters came out, I think, well, I know the soundtrack came out in 2016. Actually, maybe the game did too. But it was one of those things, I think I stumbled across it first at E3. Like, of all things, the developers were at E3 in like a little tiny corner of Sony's booth years ago. And we gave the game a try, and it's a lot of fun. At the time, I don't think I had even played any kind of roguelike anything yet, and I wasn't used to the idea of like you playing through something and dying and starting over. So that was, for me, a new experience. But I've played it, I don't know, I've played through like maybe around 10 times.
Oh, wow.
Well, they're short. Like you play like, how long is it? Like you play like a week at a time?
It's
or like
3 days.
3 days. Oh, well, not even a week.
So,
yeah, like the game takes place over 3 days and it unfolds randomly different each time.
Yeah, do you want me to explain?
Interesting.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the idea is that it's a pretty kind of classical fantasy world with like a sun empire that's sort of taking over everything, and then suddenly the moon disappears, and you have 3 days from when the moon disappears to the sun empire taking over everything, and you get to choose an adventurer from like a different region of the world that's trying to find the moon and restore balance before that happens. And that's kind of how it starts. But as you go through and you play all these different adventurers, you have traits that your adventurer can get, which are really fun, and like little epithets and things. But you sort of uncover a little bit more about like how things got the way they were and why the moon is gone. And you have to go through several generations to really figure things out.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So a lot of the soundtrack actually is pretty chill. Outside of the ones where you're like battling the sun god.
Mm-hmm.
But you know,
Yeah,
that one's less chill. But I didn't actually plan it this way, but in the last episode I pulled a song from Tangle Deep, and one of the things I liked about that one turns out to be kind of the same thing I like about this one, that you know, this song, and when you're like hanging out in town or whatever, it's like a good reprieve from all the other like battles and stuff you're going through. So it's a good break. I don't remember if this is actually what plays when you like camp and sleep. I'm hoping it is based on the name.
I was gonna say, because the vibe I was getting just listening to the song and looking at the album art, I'm getting like a vibe of like sitting around a campfire and there's like ancient ruins all around at night, and it's just kind of like serene.
That's
like,
the game.
That's the
right.
Yeah,
there.
that's the
Yeah.
That's what this sounds like to me, and so that would be very fitting.
I think most of the stuff in that game that has to do with the moon has that sort of like serene tone in the music too.
Yeah,
because the moon is kind of more peaceful, like, you know, like this, as opposed to the sun. And from what you've described of the game's world, that would be very appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, like all the sun warriors and stuff are just complete dicks. Wait, can I say that on the show? Because they really are.
It's your show, dude.
Are you going to have to chocobo sound yourself?
I can't appeal to anyone else about this.
Yeah.
I really like how the instrumentation in this kind of supports that. You've got like the low, peaceful piano chords and kind of the twinkly percussion that comes in.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's kind of like slower pace too.
Yep.
Like
And what else? Oh, and there's a moment in there where that like kind of twinkly chime comes in with the strings and takes on some of the melodic notes with the piano, and I wrote down that it was magical. So it's just, you do get this feeling of kind of slumber between the low part and the melody.
Yeah.
So I guess we're ready to move on to Gardens and Ruins.
Yeah, I'm good if you
want.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So yeah, Mythic Ocean is, if you like relaxing music, it's a gem of a game. Because the whole premise is that you are exploring an ocean that exists kind of outside of time, with a bunch of really cool kind of mythological beings. It's between world cycles, and your job basically is to converse. There's some like twin gods, a really cool celestial otter, a little bug guy.
You said celestial otter, I'm in.
Yes. People, that otter is a fan favorite. I'm pretty sure.
I'll bet.
But yeah, so it's a very thoughtful, slow-paced game. Really nice ocean visuals, and the music reflects that. You've got a lot of pretty synthy backdrop. I like the ascending runs and gardens and ruins that remind you of kind of water reflections or being underwater. You get the sense of an ocean, but kind of that timeless feeling as well. And I think the long sustained notes in that piece really kind of cause that timeless feel.
Yeah, definitely. I think the song was really pretty, and it kind of associating it with a certain mood, but it kind of reminds me of because I live in Michigan, and like I've lived near Lake Michigan like all my life, so like, it kind of reminds me of like if you're out by the lake or the shoreline at night, and it's like really quiet, and it really does feel like you're in this point where like, yeah, time is standing still, and there's just this kind of infinite stretch of water. And this song, I think, again, really just seems to really reflect that.
Yeah, I already forgot the word you said. Hilary said
I'm sorry?
something. Hilary said something. The sustain thing.
Oh, the sustain, like, note. The sustain chords and notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There really is that sort of background of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I always try not to, like, overly make comparisons here, but there are some parts of the song that remind me a little bit of the Meridian music in Super Metroid, because that's also the underwater area, and it has a similar like sense of it's calm or stillness or something to it. It's kind of relaxing. It's a little more relaxing in Mythic Ocean because you're not actually like running around and like shooting like mean seahorses and stuff. But besides that, there's a couple notes in here that gave me that sense. So it was a surprising bit of nostalgia. No idea if that actually was any kind of inspiration for them, but it was kind of an interesting comparison in my head.
That's a good choice of word though, nostalgia, because it does sound kind of nostalgic, even if you're not familiar with the game. Like I'm not. Like the music itself kind of invokes a lot of like familiar feelings and memories.
Yeah, I got that sense too, and it's kind of interesting that it does that because at like 3.5 minutes in or so, you kind of get a slightly new melody coming in, but it doesn't feel weird or unfamiliar. It just kind of feels sort of like a feature of the landscape. I don't know, which I think goes with the title of the song. So it's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it was a really good choice for this episode. Between the first episode and this one, there's some songs here that they can put you in like this kind of like peaceful, like a relaxing mindset, but a lot of them do it in different ways, which I think is really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think these do have sort of a similar pattern of relaxation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same kind of ambience, you know?
Right. That was a good one. I definitely encourage people to check out the rest of the soundtrack or the game. We probably should finish
I'm definitely tempted after hearing this. It sounds kind of like something I'd be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I've played a few hours of it, and it's really nice. The one thing I forgot to mention is that it's the music as you're exploring the Eel Kingdom, which is kind of great. Especially because the eel is sort of like your advisor. He's the character you go to if you need to ask, like, how am I doing with the other mythical beings here? Like,
oh, right, yeah.
Consult the eel.
Yeah.
Speaking of consulting eels, Peter has our next track. I'm not sure where you're going. I didn't think that segued through very well at all. I'm sorry, but Peter has our next track.
Yeah. My next pick for this one is, and I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of this, Hepatica from Hepatica KOS-MOS specifically from the Xenosaga Episode 3 soundtrack.
I'm sorry, I'm going to need you to say the entire subtitle of Xenosaga Episode 3.
Xenosaga Episode 3 also thrust Zarathustra, I think. I'm sorry that I don't speak Nietzsche.
Oh, that's okay. I still like you.
Oh, okay, you.
Yes.
I was speaking Nietzsche. What should be the subtitle for Xenosaga?
The one philosophy class I took was at 9 a.m. at freshman year. I wasn't conscious for most of it.
Oh, yeah. No, that's not going to work.
Yep.
Okay.
Not a good time.
So after Xenosaga, what do we have next?
After that, we have In the Earthen Womb, which is a bit of a throwback to the Super Nintendo era. It's from Illusion of Gaia.
Yay. Some of us like that game a lot in this room.
Yes.
Yes.
It's definitely me.
I mean, it's a great game. All right, so let's go check out some Xenosaga and some Illusion of Gaia.
So I noticed that while we've talked about Xenosaga on Rhythm Encounter before, there had been a disturbing lack of Xenosaga 3 music. So we're here to fix that starting today, because Xenosaga 3 has a really killer soundtrack. For those who don't know, the game is largely composed by Yuki Kajiura. I think I'm pronouncing that right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, who is a really good musician who also did music for Dot Hack and later Sword Art Online. Mm-hmm. So they've kind of got the market cornered on the like sci-fi anime virtual reality stuff. But their music is very, very interesting because it's got this kind of ethereal quality to it, and also uses a lot of female vocals. And this is very apparent in Xenosaga 3's soundtrack, and especially with Hepatica. This particular rendition is actually a boss battle theme, weirdly enough.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it does not sound like the kind of thing you would have, but yeah, it's I believe this plays during the final encounter with Telos, who is like the evil KOS-MOS they introduce in Xenosaga 3. So it's meant to be like the final confrontation between these two characters. As far as I know, I could be completely off base. Tyler Trosper will probably yell at me later.
I could definitely see it as one of those impactful emotional moments in a game where, you know, the sad or meaningful kind of slower music continues to play during the battle.
Yeah.
I could kind of picture that.
I like when they do that.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a recurring motif from throughout 3. The main melody gets used in a lot of songs. Mm-hmm. But I really like how they add the vocals in here. And I especially like around the middle part when the vocals cut out and it just starts doing the strings for a moment before kicking back in again. It's kind of this like quiet little reprieve almost. But yeah, the whole song is just very moody and very, very sad. It's got like kind of this air of tragedy about it that I enjoy. I am working on getting through this series, but I don't have the full context yet. But I am looking forward to it.
Yeah, since you recently acquired the game.
Oh yeah. Fun story for the listeners. I found a copy of Xenosaga 3 in the wild, and I got it with store credit, so I was very happy.
All you had to do was trade in your Wii.
You know what, though? That Wii had been in a box for 2 moves across multiple states. So I think this is a better use for it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, plus, I think the game is very rare to, like, just show up anywhere from what I hear, so...
Yeah, right. So, I wanted to jump on that.
Yeah. So I'm really surprised, until you mentioned it, I didn't realize that we had only featured one song from this game on Rhythm Encounter up until now.
Yeah, and it was a remix of a song from Xenosaga 2.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even count.
Well, it's the same composer.
I know it's the same composer. I'm just messing. But 3 has a killer soundtrack. Just in general. So I'm glad I was looking for an excuse to play a song from this.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you did. It's kind of weird how the soundtracks to 2 and 3 came out, because I won't spend too much time on this, but like episode 2 was composed by 2 different people. Mm-hmm. So It was Kajiura did all the movie soundtracks, and then Shinji Hosoe?
I think it's Hosoe, yeah.
Okay.
The Zero Escape guy.
Yeah, and so he did all of the like gameplay music, but for some reason they decided not to release any of that on a soundtrack. So the soundtrack for episode 2 is just her stuff, and it's great. It's just weird that it's not a complete soundtrack. And then, for some reason, I thought they did that with 3 too, but I think Kajiura did 3 herself. But then they decided that she had too much music, so they never released the complete soundtrack, which is why this is called, like, Best Tracks or something. They said, like, well, if we released all the music, it would have to be 6 discs, so we can't do that. So we just made her choose enough music to fill 2.
Well, and now then there's those of us over here who are like, we would listen to 6 discs of Kajiura music.
Well, yeah, the Final Fantasy VII remake is 6 or 7 discs.
That's true.
Yeah, right. Like we would totally do this. And I feel like Hosoe's music for 2 got a bit of a reappraisal recently. At the time, I know people weren't a big fan of it, and it does kind of clash with Kajiura's style. But Hosoe is a talented composer in his own right too.
Oh, he is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's weird because I was reading about that too. Because again, I thought that same thing happened on 3, but they didn't work together at all. So like, of course they were going to clash because you said, hey, you do this and you do this, and we'll just put them together and see what happens.
Yeah, but they have completely different musical styles. It's the Resident Evil 6 development cycle of music composition.
Yeah.
There's a strained analogy for you.
Well, you got your Resident Evil mention in here.
Yep. The quota has been met for the day.
Yes. As for the song itself, I think Hilary probably has more useful notes than me.
What?
But, well, I mean, I'm see your notes, so yes, I think you do. Me, like, I was just, most of my comments on the song were that I like that it's sort of sad, and the way you describe it, it's like it's probably intentionally like melancholy, but I don't think it goes too far in that direction. Like it does have some moments, but it still has just kind of a nice down tempo flow to it. So I think it still fits our theme today. It's still peaceful.
I found myself coming back to this one several times and thinking, like, yes, this is a relaxing song. Like, I could see myself relaxing to this, but why and how and in what context what actually makes it a relaxing song? Because that melody is really tinged with a little bit of sadness and regret, especially the way it's performed. It's very melancholy and it's very pretty. But it was interesting to think about, like, well, what still makes this relaxing? And I think it's the fact that the vocals do sort of still have that slowness combined with the instrumentation and the way the song transitions and the different instruments come in and out. Because I have several notes here saying, like, there's a great moment where the piano and bells take over the melody in a little interlude and it's quieter, and then the vocal harmonies coming back. So there's a part where it goes from kind of straight vocals to more vocal harmonies when they come back the second time, and that makes things very lush. And then it's the piano, it's really sparse in the background, so there's a really fun play between the melody and the background and kind of what takes the spotlight and draws your attention in the song. And I think that really effectively, like, makes you focus on the song, and I think that focus is partially what helps make it so relaxing. And you kind of get the sense of, like, taking a breath after something that was causing you some tension is finally done, I think is how I describe, like, the type of relaxation from this song.
Okay, I like that.
I like that too. That's a very fitting description. Because I think, because I'm pretty sure that there's multiple encounters with Telos throughout the game. And this is supposed to be like the final one or whatever. Yeah, so that's a very interesting way of describing it.
Yeah, I like it. In any case, I don't know if the soundtrack to the game is any easier to come by than the game itself, but I do recommend people check out the rest of the soundtrack too, because there's some really, really good music on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, the soundtrack for 2 made like a freak appearance on Spotify recently, so maybe 3 will follow.
Oh,
maybe.
Interesting.
Please,
nice.
please, Bandai Namco.
Yes.
I always like to hear about more game music appearing on platforms like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, it makes it so much easier to like track it down.
Yep. Okay. Next is a song that probably won't be appearing on Spotify anytime soon.
Yeah, most
Probably
likely.
not. Weirder things have happened, but probably not.
Most likely not, because I picked the straight up original soundtrack version. It's very kind of MIDI sounding. It's very retro, but I was obsessed with it when I was younger. I don't know if it was those MIDI vocals for some reason, but it was something about the melody kind of over that constant flow of notes that are sort of doing arpeggios in the background that just really captured my imagination. So I listened to this song a lot in and out of the game, and I think it deserves recognition as a relaxing track, partially because it manages to remain very relaxing despite a weird in-game context, and I hope you all don't mind me mentioning that, but the time that you're most likely to hear this song in Illusion of Gaia is actually as a, like, please turn the Super Nintendo off kind of prompt. Because if you choose not to continue first off, you're in the dark space in Illusion of Gaia, which is this cool little place. There's like a Gaia statue, and she's like this lady with a ram head. And there are stars floating by in the background, and it's kind of a little bit creepy, but mostly relaxing and kind of peaceful.
Yeah.
But she helps you on your quest, and if you say I don't want to continue my adventure, then she just says, then rest a while, and you hear the teleportation sound from the game, and then it's just her and the dark space background visuals and this music until you turn the console off.
And that's so cool.
It's cool, but it's also like, wait, did she just absorb him? Did she eat him? Like, what?
Yeah, it's a weird way of like doing a save and quit. That's kind of what Soul Blazer does, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, it's one of those.
Very fitting.
Yeah.
I love it when games do that, though, when they incorporate like plot stuff into like something as simple as like quitting the game.
Yep. And it kind of is. Yeah, this music has a lot of the same features I feel like we've talked about before. There's kind of a sense of timelessness. It's pretty flowy with a kind of MIDI piano arpeggios in the background. The melody is really pretty but simple. But I'm really eager to hear what you guys think, especially since it's a little different.
What I think it's really interesting too that we followed up a Xenosaga song with this, because there's a 13 years between these two games releasing. I wouldn't say that they technically go together, but they kind of do in some weird way.
No, I think they kind of do too. I mean, there's a space motif going on here that I think is very appropriate, and even just the way the background of this song goes, like not just the main melody is like, you know, the do 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 like that, but also like just the I don't even know what to call it. The bass of it is very space-like.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Yeah,
that's true.
It is, and it is that background, actually. I noticed that the backgrounds were similar, so I was like, it'd be interesting to listen to these two back to back.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of the intro to Final Fight, honestly, or Fatal Fight, where it's like where it's like these little chirpy sounds. I have no better way of describing it than that. It's like these little chirpy sounds in rapid succession, but that gives me that sounds like you're like soaring through the stars.
Yeah,
I like that.
And in the background,
think that's an official term, right? Chirpy sounds.
Little chirp. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's very chimey too, and you have this sort of kind of like percussion with it.
Yeah.
But you do have that constant, and I kind of describe them as arpeggios. It's like the notes, you have certain notes going up and down in succession, and it's pretty constant throughout the whole piece. And they use that a lot in songs that are supposed to be like sci-fi or space themed.
True. So how does that go? You said it like goes up and down a lot?
Yeah, the notes. You're trying to get me to sing it, aren't you?
Like how?
Peter just sang a little bit of it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There we go.
Your singing voice is better than mine. So. I gotta say that I really love synthesized vocals in old games. So this is really good to me. Like I love how that sounds.
Oh yeah.
I think and especially just kind of like the timbre and the pitch of some of them. Like it's probably good that it's delivered in this format. Maybe.
Yeah.
It really soars. Yeah, and I think it'd be hard to get like the same relaxing effect. I think it's a nice kind of drifty, expansive space kind of MIDI song.
That's a good way of describing it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I could leave this on. I could like if I was going to quit the game, I could leave this on in the background while I'm doing other stuff, which is probably the best like thing you can say for music that's that you're supposed to kind of just vibe with.
Exactly.
Right. It is quite a compliment. Yeah. It's also been a good reminder for me personally, because I have not played Illusion of Gaia, I think, since it came out, like a very, very long time ago. And literally yesterday, I stumbled across my cart in the basement, so I think we might have to play it again at some point.
And you recently replayed Soul Blazer, so it's got to do the next one.
Got to do the next one. You're right. But before I replay Illusion of Gaia, I need some coffee.
We all do.
We all do. Well, Peter has coffee.
I'm almost out of coffee.
Oh no.
Mike, what is your song?
Unsurprisingly, I have a song. Well, unsurprisingly for people who have been talking to me for the last 9 months or a year or so, because I've been completely obsessed with Coffee Talk. Not the SNL skit. I'll put that out there. I have nothing against the SNL skit of Coffee Talk.
Hello, welcome to Coffee Talk.
Thank you. So Coffee Talk is a visual novel and like kind of bartender simulator. Like a lot of people compare it to Valhalla. I see it in some of the gameplay, but I think, believe it or not, making the coffee is less important than the actual story in the game. That's kind of a side thing. It's mostly about the visual novel and the narrative.
And picking the right drinks to serve to people.
And picking the right drinks, yes. Anyway, but I guess I'll save that for after. I have Calming Drizzle from the Coffee Talk soundtrack. And our almost last track today will be Peter.
So yeah, once we said we were going to do a podcast on relaxing music, there was one song I just had to include, and it was Crystalline Chill from Final Fantasy 15.
Do you like Final Fantasy 15 or something?
I don't know. I don't know how you would have gotten that impression. It's not like it's not like I've made a habit of being the site's resident Final Fantasy 15 apologist or anything.
Not like you finished reading the novelization.
Oh, don't remind me.
More on that later.
It's not like Final Fantasy 15 apologist is literally in my site bio on every article I write for the site.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that actually. Okay. Well, that said, you have nothing to apologize for because this is a great choice.
Yes.
So let's go listen to some Coffee Talk and some Final Fantasy 15. So the Coffee Talk song, I almost actually saved it for a future cafe episode of Rhythm Encounter, which, spoilers, I guess, but at some point that will be coming. But since I don't know when it's coming, I thought this was the right place for it, because pretty much any song in that entire soundtrack would fit this episode. I mean, the whole game takes place in a coffee shop in Seattle, because of course it does.
At night.
At night. It's always at night. So, the soundtrack had to be this relaxing thing all the time. And so again, really any of them would have fit here. So I had to try to pick one of my favorites, which is Calming Drizzle. And I found out about this game last year sometime, or whenever it got revealed. I kept hitting up the site like, when is this coming out? When is this out? And they quietly uploaded some songs to YouTube. But yeah, it's been a thing for a while now. So I'm glad the game is out now, and I played it, and I got the very long soundtrack. I forget actually how many songs it is, but I know it's about it's almost 2.5 hours of music.
Yeah, the official soundtrack is 27 songs.
Oh, is that all? It feels like more, but they're long tracks.
They are. Most of them are at least 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, it is only 27. Okay. But yeah, so it's 2.5 hours long, but I think that's perfect for this kind of music because, again, it's background music, it's cafe music. It's composed, since it's supposed to be heard in a coffee shop, you can also really imagine it being in a coffee shop, if that makes any sense at all. It has there's a bit of repetition to it, which I know, maybe that does or doesn't work for some people, but I think the setting it's used in the game, but also if you were to hear this in a coffee shop in real life, I think it would work, because at least for me, like, that's perfect background music for whether you're studying or working or just sitting there having a conversation. So between that and the fact that each song is so long, it really lets you, gives you some breathing room with the song to really sit down and let the song sink in and experience it.
And I think there's been a theme with several of the songs here, that sort of, like you said, kind of the short, simple snippets of melody that many of them do repeat, and then just sort of the room to let the song sink in, kind of take in the atmosphere. And this one had a really rainy atmosphere to me. I have all sorts of things in my notes about the little glissandos in the beginning, which are the sort of slides between one note and another. So the ding, ding kind of noises at the beginning, and then the more plunky do 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 do, that sounded like different types of rain against a window to me. And so I have a lot of stuff in my notes about how this does sound like observing rain from inside. And then there's a section in the middle that I wrote. It's kind of a fade into just some simple chords, and it feels like a break in the rain where you're just kind of staring at the dreary sky. So I don't know. It was pretty evocative to me.
Yeah, no, I was. This reminds me. This is definitely intentional, but it reminds me a lot of those lo-fi beats to listen to at playlists that you find online, which I use very often as background noise.
Yeah, me too.
And that's definitely very intentional, but it suits the vibe of this game super well, like you were saying, because this would not be out of place in a regular coffee shop. And it's got that kind of that peaceful ambiance, but it's also kind of upbeat and happy all the same. It's got this kind of perky yet mellow aesthetic to the whole thing. I also realized that I've been confusing this game with Necro Barista the entire time, which wonder how that happened. But that's on me. I was a little confused for a second, but it's fine.
That's okay. I mean, they both take place in coffee shops.
Necro Barista's on our other relaxing music episode.
I had a whole analogy with Bailey's Cafe planned out, and that didn't work. So we're just gonna ignore that.
Oh. That's okay. Okay, well, good. I'm glad you guys liked it. Yeah, it does feel like a real kind of coffee shop. The only drawback to real coffee shops is that you're most likely not going to have a patron who's a nerdy mermaid from... Is she from Atlantis? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really like the cast in that game.
Or an
so
orc game developer.
Or an orc game developer, yes.
For context, listeners, I work at a pie shop / coffee shop, and we get some interesting customers. Which is sometimes very lovely.
A magical pie shop?
It could be.
Okay.
You never know.
Okay.
We do have a staircase that goes nowhere in the basement. Anyway, this is probably a lot more about my job than you ever wanted to know. So, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Yeah, maybe let's move on from like terrifying pie company basements to Final Fantasy 15.
Speaking of terrifying pie company basements.
Yes, of course.
I don't even know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
I like 15. I've made that clear, I think. But one of the best things about that game is the sense of camaraderie between its characters, as well as its soundtrack by Yoko Shimomura and a bunch of other guest composers. But this is one of the best pieces in the game. It's the main menu theme of all things. And if you told me, yeah, you know what we really need for our main menu? A super relaxing, mellow, electronic version of the Final Fantasy Prelude. And it's perfect.
It really is.
Yeah, I was so surprised and delighted. The Prelude is probably one of my favorite pieces of video game music, hands down, if I had to pick one. I really, really like it. It's iconic, and the way it's adapted, you're right, it's perfect. Like, whether you're just hanging out in the menu looking at things, or you...
At pretty men. I can't be the only one.
It is what it is. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah, for all the jokes about Final Fantasy boy band, like Crystalline Chill is a good background.
Honestly.
While they're equipping themselves. But yeah, I like how you have that kick snare drum pattern that's a little bit more driving, but then you kind of get some mysterious vibes because you have the strings going at the beginning, and you still have, kind of like I demonstrated earlier, those sort of famous arpeggio type runs from the Prelude that come in right after the drums, which I really like the timing of that. I think if you tried to do like the sustained, flowing background like in the original Prelude, it would have been too much with that sort of drum pattern, but the way they put it just after the drums in short bursts, so you still get the whole Prelude, I think it works really, really well, and I like it.
Yeah, I like how they break it up, because it's like you get that kind of do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yep.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Exactly.
Like, yeah. Uematsu would be proud. It kind of reminds me, because Final Fantasy X had a similar song. When you're in the Sphere Grid, they had a version of the Prelude as well that was kind of upbeat and not hip hoppy, but a little more like synthesized and EDM like. But I think this is a better rendition of that. It fits the modern fantasy meets reality vibe that 15 was going for. I think perhaps more than any other piece on the soundtrack, which is a pretty even balance between kind of different musical styles. But this one, I think, more than any other, fits that aesthetic very well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually almost wish you hadn't said that, because that was the crux of my notes, was specifically the Final Fantasy X comparison. Because I like the instrument.
Oh, yeah.
I like the instrumentation used here a lot, and it did remind me of what 10 did with it. I like the one in 10. I think a lot of people don't, because it was I think it was way, way far away from what people were used to hearing the Prelude in, but that's okay.
It was kind of a leap for the time. I think looking back at it now, it doesn't bother. What doesn't bother me as much, but like I could imagine going from like 7, 8, 9s or all those classic games as rendition of the Prelude to 10. It's like, oh, that's a big jump.
It is. It's really different. I thought it was an interesting choice, but I do feel like this is a similar thing, but it feels more true to the spirit of the original song than 10's was, even though it's still doing some similar stuff with instrumentation, and maybe the fact that in later games we got things like Crazy Chocobo, like which I think people maybe didn't like but later embraced. I don't know where the general public follows now on it. Like, I like the song for some weird reason.
People who don't like Crazy Chocobo are weak.
But it's like, if you can accept that one, then you can accept 10's Prelude too.
14's soundtrack is full of epic rock anthems and like that's awesome. I appreciate more musical variety in the series. So I think there's definitely a place for songs like that, you know.
Oh, definitely.
And thinking about it, part of what might make this a little bit less of a departure, like based on what you're saying with the comparison, is there's a neat little interlude in it when there's some descending notes with a new drum beat, and that's very, very chill. So I think that kind of helps tone the whole thing down, so it's not too fast, it's not too... You get some of that same scope that you would from the original.
It's not as in your face.
Yes.
And I think that's a thing with the 10 song. Like, again, I like that song just fine, but that song is very fast. Like, it's
That's true.
like, and then this one is more like but it's more like downbeat. And you have a lot more backing instrumentation to kind of like complement it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really good choice. You know, we've had some 15 on here before, but not all of it, but several of them were some of the more upbeat songs or some of the battle music. Which is awesome stuff too, but I'm glad we have got some variety with this one.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of that soundtrack is a lot of epic sweeping chorus, and I love that stuff. But it's nice to sit back and relax a little bit. And for a game who's like where the central conceit is like your 4 buddies on a road trip going camping, I think it's good to to have a kind of a calmer song here and there.
Yeah. And when you think about it, it really has kind of like an integral role, because as you're playing, you're in those menus a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it plays on the map too. I'm pretty sure they have the same song on the map.
So yeah,
I could be wrong. It's been a while.
I know. I would go on to some story about how I got to get back to it, and played like the DLC episodes and stuff. But I just did that in episode 51, so I won't bore people with that a second time.
I'd recommend it. I still haven't played the this is off topic, but I still haven't played the Royal Edition content. I have it
either.
But I want to like do a replay where I do all of the DLC content, but it's like I need to find time and energy to do that. What I've seen of it looks pretty cool, but that's neither here nor there. 15 is what 15 is at this point. And I think, and as we move on to Final Fantasy 16, I think it'll be interesting to see how people appraise that title. Like with all Final Fantasies, they sort of get their second day in the sun sometimes.
Exactly.
It's true. And I appreciate how this block has been a chunk of kind of more modern, relaxing music. So it's nice. We don't have all of one specific type.
Yeah, it's been fun. And that almost brings us to a close. But I have some general outro stuff to talk about. So this has been episode 55. We've now had 2 episodes of relaxing music in a row. Coming next is episode 56, although as of this recording, we haven't completely decided what it's going to be. So I could let you be surprised, or I could just casually mention that at some point in November, Final Fantasy IX will have its 20th anniversary in the US. So I don't know, maybe we should do something about that. So we will consider that. So again, we'll be back in a week or 2 with another episode after this. Maybe a bit about Final Fantasy IX, or maybe something else. We will find out. But if you liked what you heard, or want to share some feedback or thoughts or topic ideas, you can email the show at music@rpgfan.com. And remember that all the songs we talked about here, we're going to list those. We'll have those in a track list on our post on RPG Fan, and also in your podcast show notes. Along with the track list is also a list of places where you can listen and buy any of these albums. So we link to places where you can buy them, like Bandcamp or iTunes, or stream, because more and more game music keeps showing up on places like Spotify and Apple Music. So however it is you like getting your music, we try to include links for all the stuff we talk about here. So you can go there and, listen and support the artists. So for me, if you want to reach out to me personally, probably the best way is mike@rpgfan.com. Sometimes I also lurk in Discord, but not all the time. So email is best for me. Hilary, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Sure. Hilary@rpgfan.com. is a good way to contact me. And I'm also EP Fire on Discord.
Okay. And Peter?
You can find me. I'm Peter T at rpgfan.com if you want to email me. I'm also on Twitter a lot at I Have Fury. I'm on our Discord, but I don't really use it a lot, and I can't remember my username off the top of my head, so sorry.
So Twitter it is.
Twitter it is. You have to brave the hell site if you want to talk to me.
Yeah. I'll stick with email.
Thank you. Yeah, probably for the best, honestly.
Yeah. All right. So we have a couple little things, and then we're going to have a bonus track to wrap up today. So if you haven't listened to it yet, I also do recommend, along with Rhythm Encounter at RPG Fan, we have 2 other podcasts as well. We have our general game show, or RPG show, Random Encounter, where people talk about current stuff or what they're playing. That comes out every 2 weeks. And then every week on Thursday or Friday or so, we have Retro Encounter, which, as you might guess, is often about retro games or replaying older games, and with different hosts each time. And then in between those game journal episodes, there's some other fun stuff like quiz shows and really whatever's going on that month. But whatever it is, there's a new episode every week. So I definitely recommend checking out Random and Retro Encounter. And if you like this show or any of our shows, it would be really great if you could review us, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever it is you're listening. If you can rate, review, and subscribe to us, that helps us, in our rankings and helps get the word out. So, whatever you can do, talk about us to your coworkers, with your siblings, like whatever you want to do. You can talk about us with your pets, although unless your pets have iTunes accounts, they probably won't help our numbers. But, they might still like it. I know we have a new little puppy in this house, and she seems to like some of the music we've been playing lately. So
she also likes Final Fantasy 14, so she has good taste.
Yes. She does like Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, Luna likes 14 too. She chases my character around the screen.
Nice. All right, so that's about it for today. So Hilary, you have a bonus relaxing music track that's going to wrap up 2 full episodes of relaxing music.
Oh man,
no pressure.
Yeah,
but what do you have?
It's a heavy burden. So this is a topic that's really important to me. Like, I have several relaxing playlists that I've put together on YouTube, mostly to do yoga too, but this song is one of the very first songs I wanted to use for one of those, and it's kind of going back to that ocean theme that I started with Mythic Ocean. And it's also a song that's just very near and dear to my heart, and it's a very relaxing version of it. I have an OC remix, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, Seaside Lullaby, Windfish Ballad.
I mean, it's really hard to go wrong with Ballad of the Windfish in general, but yeah, I have heard this OC remix before, and it's a really good choice. So I'm excited to listen to it.
Well, thank you again, and hopefully everyone listening has received some good recommendations and has had a chance to relax along with us.
Yeah, I think it's been a really good mix of songs as usual. So thank you both for joining me. So for myself, for Hilary, and for Peter, thank you for listening, and we'll see you here next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I don't even know why we do a show. Might as well just do a whole bunch of outtakes back to back.
Quack.